levels up. I don't know if we need that. We're going to go like, woo! It does. You know, they say if you kind of scream, it's just like if you heard the scream. So, thank you for being here. I need to introduce our sponsors. We have RPR as our silver sponsor today, and we have AIR as our diamond sponsor, and they will have a 5-minute presentation later on during the day. So at this time, we can actually start with our panel. I'm very excited about this opportunity because I think we have with us some of the top people in the industry here in our area, and I think by the questions that we put together that you will have an opportunity to learn incredible things today. I will start with the ladies first. So Linda Vidov. Hi Linda, thanks for being here. Linda Vidov is, let me just find the bio here. Hi. Hello. All right. With DAUM Commercial Realty, I started working when I got into the industry. I started working with Linda, so she's a good friend, and I respect her very much. One of the few people, you notice probably in the commercial field, less ladies than gents, and the ladies rock. And there's 5, I think, that are on top, and Linda is one of them. So, Linda, want to say a few words about yourself in the opening?
Hi, my name is Linda ELKAIM, and I'm with Top Commercial Realty, my own brokerage, and I specialize in office and industrial sales and leasing throughout the state of our valley. And I've been in the business now for about 11 years, and have had my own office since about 2013.
Thank you. All right. Now we move on down to Bill UKROPINA, a friend of our association and a realtor. I know Bill for the longest time. As a matter of fact, when I was contemplating on the idea of getting into commercial real estate, Bill's office was in Glendale, and he gave me a tour of his office over there, and you can't even remember that.
Of course I can, Nick. I'm sorry I didn't talk you out of it.
But it was amazing because they showed how a real commercial office operates and how they have departments that do stuff for you. You don't have to do it yourself and stuff like that. So that was amazing. Bill, would you say a few words about yourself, please?
Thank you, Nick. I'm Bill UKROPINA. I've been in the commercial real estate brokerage consulting business for 35 years, since about 1982. I'm one of the principals of Coldwell Banker Commercial Advisors in Glendale. I specialize in office properties along the 210 freeway between Pasadena and Monrovia. I spent 22 years at CBRE in sales and management and started my own Coldwell Banker franchise 11 years ago.
Thank you. Bill also does a lot of training. He has been at the association with his trainings that we really like to hear, and they're very good. Thank you, Bill. All right. Robert Stover, known as Bob. Bob, can you tell us about yourself? Bob is with NAI Capital.
My name is Bob Stover. I'm with NAI Capital, a commercial real estate firm. Our office is in Pasadena. I started out in 1978 with a very small firm that had 8 offices around the country, or around the state. That dissolved. I went to Cushman & Wakefield for a while, went to Drummond Ellis for a while, with Charles Dunn downtown for 16 years, and found a really good group of people to work with in Pasadena at the NAI Capital office there.
It is a great team over there. I happen to know a few people that are no longer with us in that office, and they always put a good spin on that office. They're all people. Great, thanks so much. And finally, last but not least, Dennis Sandoval with DAUM. And Dennis, I met at the AIR conference a couple of years back, annual financial, what is it, state of the market, I think. And yeah, and right from the get-go, I thought he was a great guy, so it was really great to continue to come. Please, Dennis, tell us something about yourself.
Thanks, we appreciate it. I'm with DAUM Commercial Real Estate. I'm partnered with the company. I started in the business, told my wife, you know, let me try it for a year, see how this thing goes. Here, 33 years later, here I am doing this stuff. I love the business. I love the people I network with. Bill and Bob are good examples of the kind of folks that we do business with. We have 11 offices throughout Southland, Arizona, and we have 147 agents. I specialize primarily in industrial real estate. 70% of my business is industrial, the other 30 is office, investment, and miscellaneous other things for my clients. But it's nice to see a good crowd here today. We hope to impart some words of wisdom and maybe learn from you and you learn from us. So thanks.
Great, thank you very much. Dennis, okay, we're going to have, there was a couple of options to do this, and I chose a game option. So what we're going to do is we're going to compete for the answers. The questions, the group helped me put the questions together, so believe me, I'm not the smartest guy in the room here, but the fact is that these questions are awesome. So with this, when I say the question, you can actually raise your hand if you wish to be the first one, and then, well, multiple of you can answer the same questions if you feel tempted to do so. All right, question number one. What are some creative marketing ideas you have personally implemented to lease or sell commercial buildings faster and for more money? All right, Linda.
All right, well, when I look at a building to market it, I basically look at the highest and best use for the property. So when I identify that, what that is, checking the type of uses with the city that can be allowed there and things of that nature. Then I go to the target market and I reach out to the owner users. I mainly deal with owner users primarily. So I try to focus on that and market to those individuals. And when I set out my marketing campaigns, I focus on that type of user. So when I send out my mailers or my email campaigns, again, that's where I target. I also try to contact directly to owner users who would be most suitable for that property, and that is my main focus.
Great. Anybody want to add on to it?
When you're marketing a building, it should look like what your house looks like if you're hosting Thanksgiving dinner with your family on the last Thursday in November. Your building should look perfect. And if the owner doesn't want to paint the whole building and fix up the whole building, at least paint the entrance door and the entrance lobby and the restrooms. The building should look good, number one. Number two, perhaps if you're leasing 5,000 feet of empty office space, and there's a tenant next door on month to month, there's other advantages of that space, isn't there? You have 5,000 feet per lease, but there's a month-to-month tenant next door, and when that tenant expands, they can move into that space. So you have to look at what the advantages are of the building. A building should look its best, and it should be marketed at a rental rate that's going to lease.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I think one of the other things, I do a lot of leasing. Probably 70% of my income is from leasing, and the rest of it's from sales. So, as Linda mentioned, you find a target group, either general office space, could be accounting, it could be insurance, it could be law, something like that. If you're marketing a commercial building for sale, it's a little bit different, I think, than residential, because you can go to property owners that are nearby. We've had good success, going in just a simple 5-block area from the building that's for sale, because those investors have similar buildings, and they didn't know it was for sale until we got there. So it's a little different in that regard. As far as the leasing, like Linda said, you find the highest and best use, or the use that the city will allow, and you go from there to find a particular tenant or group type of tenant to go into the space.
That totally makes sense, actually, for the owners of the same block. Dennis, did you want to add?
Well, the only thing I'd like to add is I'm very focused on detail. I like to think I know more about the building than the building owner does. I want to know everything about that property. I want to know its flaws. I want to know the amenities. I want to be able to position that property properly. So it takes a little due diligence. And my effort initially, and as all of us have leased and sold hundreds of buildings, knowledge and attention to detail and understanding the building intimately really impacts where that building sells and leases. So I always try to put myself in the shoes of my client. What are they expecting to hear from us? If we're just saying yes, we're not adding value, we're not doing our job. So know the building, know the property, be honest with the client, know the pluses and minuses of the building, and being able to talk frankly with the client about the property. There's pluses and minuses all around those flaws. Add value. Do whatever we need to do to add value to the dialogue. So I think that's important.
Perfect. I found the common denominator there is knowledge and attention to detail.
I think one of the other things that will come up later is communication. Be able to communicate with your client. When Bill pointed out things that may need to be done at the building, or as Dennis brought out deficiencies in the buildings, those things should be brought to the owner's attention because in his mind, it's the perfect building. It's the best building that's ever been on the market. Well, it might not be.
And I think it applies to residential real estate as well, but it obviously does in the commercial arena. Okay, question number 2. Why do some buildings seem to be vacant nearly all the time?
Well, go ahead.
There are a number of aspects to why a building may be vacant. It could be simple things like the location. It could be parking, or there's no parking, or there's parking that's too expensive. It's more expensive than competing buildings. It could be the management. Maybe people have been in the building. Word is spread that this is not a good building to be in. That's a real problem. Could be an obsolete building, so that the floor plates don't lay out in a way that a modern technology company, for instance, could use the space. Those are just some of the things off the top.
When buildings are empty for a long time, it's often also, I agree with Bob, it's also a family dispute. For example, you inherit a building, your 2 sisters want to sell and you want to lease it and you can't get along, or it's an out-of-state owner. So we should advise our customers that in their will, when they pass, that there is a way to dispose of the property. If you're giving a property to your 6 children, there should be a way that if 3 kids want to sell it and 3 kids want to lease it, the 3 kids that want to lease it can buy out the 3 kids that want to sell it. So it's often a family dispute or an out-of-state owner, but there's ways that us as professionals can help owners to write a will where when they pass, there's not going to be a dispute and your kids aren't going to argue about what to do with the building.
Linda, did you?
Yes, I want to comment. It's along the same lines. I think it can be attributed to difficult landlords in many cases who don't quite understand maybe what their buildings need. They don't understand that many times they need to put in the TI dollars in order to get that building leased, or that they need to compensate the tenant in another manner, such as rent abatement, or amortizing TIs over the course of the lease. So I think that many times that also falls into place because they don't quite understand the full condition of the building or what's needed to bring that building to the condition that it needs for the use that's intended by that tenant.
I have to swing in a question on that is they are usually listed and that's why we know that they exist. Do you think that the listing broker can bear any liability on it sitting on the market so long? I mean,
Yeah, you lose the listing. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think also that once the building's been on the market, you have the kind of question mark when people call, why has it been vacant for so long? And so it does get a stigma to it, and that can be difficult to overcome because then people feel, well, if it's a difficult landlord, I don't want a difficult landlord, so they go look to other options. So yes, I believe it does get a stigma to it after a certain amount of time.
Thank you. All right. When asked why choose you rather than your competitors, how do you answer that question?
That's the hardest question to answer. We all think it's the easiest question. Everybody in this room should know exactly why you should be chosen by your customer to do whatever service you do. Property management brokerage, you're a lawyer, you're an accountant, you're an escrow company. And so I'm in a presentation today at 2 o'clock. The presentation went well. At the end of the presentation, they say, by the way, Bill, we're interviewing Bob Stover at 3 o'clock and Linda Vidov at 4 o'clock and Dennis Sandoval tomorrow morning. Why should we choose you over these 3 fine people? And that's a very difficult question. You better know how to answer it. It's not about you, the way you answer it. It's what you are going to do for the customer. I don't care how many buildings you've leased in my market. What are you going to do for your customer to lease the building faster and for more money? I'm going to contact more lessees. I have the best list of brokers. I'm going to give you the best advice how you should fix up your building before it's placed on the market. It's all about them in presentations, not you. And you need to sell the customer on that your company and your team is going to do more to contact more lessees and give better advice and therefore lease or sell the building quicker?
You know, again, I agree with Bill. It's a tough question to answer. And I tell my agents, if you've gotten to that point where they have to ask you that question, you have not greased the skids beforehand. So you set yourself up for this question. My question is, let's not be shy about asking for the business. My first answer to that question is, thank you for the opportunity to be of service. Your business is important to me. This is why I should be the choice. And I'll go in. We'll all have our stories. I've got a 100-year-old company that's behind me. I've got all the resources of attorneys and contractors, but at some point it becomes a very personal decision for that prospect. How do you convey that message of sincerity and passion, which cannot be faked? I mean, they have to see it in your eyes that you are sincere. You want the business. Your business is important to them, and this is what I'm going to do. Just like Bill says, I'm going to walk you through what I'm going to do for you. You're never going to have to ask yourself, what is my agent doing for me today? You lay out the plan. Everything we do in this business has a plan. That's why I love this business. There is an emotional factor, but there is a system. There are processes, and there's plans that we go through regularly that allows us to minimize mistakes and not let things fall through the cracks. It allows us to be attentive to the details. I'm probably a little more anal on that end of it, because we've been doing this all a long time. The last thing you want to do is have your client come back and tell you, well, Dennis, how come you didn't let me know that I was going to be faced with this fee? I didn't know there was a utility surcharge. I didn't know that I've got to replace the HVAC unit and that point. Anyway, so you have to let the client know that you know more about the building than he does. You're sincere about the business. You want the business. Ask for the business.
Thank you very much. All right. How has technology and social media changed the way commercial real estate agents market themselves and conduct their business?
Okay. Well, I definitely think that you have more of an avenue of principals going online and looking at properties and contacting agents and brokers directly. And so when you present a property on the listing services, you need to be cognizant that you won't just have brokers and agents looking at that listing. You're going to have principals looking at those listings. And so for me, what I try to ensure is that I put the best and most accurate information on the property. I do a brochure, get a floor plan made for the property, and present that property in the best possible manner, because you will have principals now looking on those services. Also, using the multi-level marketing as far as going on social media and marketing those properties, putting it out there, putting out email campaigns. Those are all much more a part of marketing the property as opposed to even 10 years ago. So just making sure that the property has full exposure on all the listing services, that it's presented properly, and that you also provide those other avenues so that you get principals and agents looking at those properties on various forms of media.
I think what Linda mentioned about social media is something that I haven't gotten involved with. I'm the generation that's going out, the new generation that's using this stuff that's coming in. So Facebook, I know guys that tweet their listings to a whole group of people. Somebody in that group may know somebody looking for a building or looking for space. LinkedIn is a way to market yourself so that you have a profile of your history, your activity, the building that you're working on. You can put those in there. I think one of the things that's changed the most for some of us that have been in the business for a really long time, when we remember the days when you wrote an offer with a piece of carbon paper, and I had to explain to people what carbon paper was, hand carry that to an owner, wait for him to sign it, go pick it up, bring it back. Now you can send 15 copies in 15 places in the world with send, and there's no lag time. Where before you may be able to get it off to somebody and sort of figure out how you're going to adjust your speech when you eventually get it. Now, 15 minutes after you've sent it, you got a phone call. The availability of information to owners, the availability of access to other brokers is huge. where before somebody might be working in the area that you didn't bump into. I mean, you just didn't know he was there. Now, because of databases, you can connect with the people that are working in those markets, get your property in front of them where you couldn't before.
The good news is that if the four of us get a listing on an office building for sale in Monrovia at noon today, by 12:15 p.m., we can send an email to all the brokers who work for San Gabriel Valley, all the users in our database, etc. But the challenge is we all get so many emails now, and a lot of them are very poorly written. The email, first of all, the subject column is very important. It should say, office building for sale in Monrovia on Myrtle Avenue. And the email should be 2 or 3 lines. People are going to read these long emails. But here's the challenge. We all get so many emails now, it's hard to get through them. I was on a tour recently with a company called 4B, a Korean company, at least based in South Pasadena. You're with these millennials now on a tour, and they're on their phones saying, Bill, what about this building that I just found on LoopNet? What about this building I just found on CoStar? So we better keep up with these millennials, because as Linda said, they're doing their own research now. You know, people call up my sign now and they go, what about this building you have? What about Bob Stover's building? What Dennis's or Linda's building? So we, I am at least, the older generation, better be as up to date on these millennials that on the tour these days are going on LoopNet and saying, well, Bill, what about that building? Why didn't you tell me about that one?
My thought on this also is that it's amazing how this whole social media thing's come full circle. I had a client the other day I spoke to, and I'm talking more about the securing a relationship. Going out, I'm not talking about marketing properties. I use the social media to cast the net to get my name out. But what's happening now is I have clients that, Dennis, I don't even look at emails and a lot of messages coming. You know, believe it or not, I'm seeing more. I spend more time picking up envelopes and reading letters now. I've spammed everybody out, and so now the letters come back in vogue, which is kind of interesting if you think about it. The other thing is that we're in a relationship building business, and I have an agent of mine. I sat at his desk. I said, Tom, how are you doing with this business that you've jumped into for 2 years? Your production's a little down. I don't see the traction. Oh, Dennis, I got 3,000 names in this database. That's great, Tom. How many of those really know you exist? If there's a real estate decision being made today, how many of you are going to be one of the top 3 calls that are going to be considered, agents going to be considered for that real estate decision? It's a challenge we have. We're in a real estate business that is kind of get this false sense of security. They're throwing nets all over the place, and they're going to remember our name, and they're going to know who we are. It just doesn't happen that way. I'm still a blue-collar broker at the end of the day. I have 400 buildings that I work, 800 contacts, plus or minus, because there's building owners and tenants. Those are the people that I focus on day in and day out. The other layer of marketing I do is icing on the cake. It's gravy. But I need to know, in my target market, if there's a real estate decision being made, I'm on the radar screen. So let's not kid ourselves. We have to do it. Social media is a given. We're in that world. But I'm more focused on the relationship side of the business. And I'm very targeted. I'm very specific. And I'm not shy about going out and getting face-to-face with people and telling them, I want your business. That's an element that takes time. It's a grind. A lot of us don't like doing the cold calling and canvassing. You think there's a shortcut to it. There isn't. So think about the blue-collar nature of our business. It doesn't go away. My thought.
Thank you. I have to kick in myself on this, even though I'm not on the panel. But I do cover all aspects of the millennium kind of thing. I use Facebook marketing. LinkedIn is my bio. I mean, the resume, and I keep it every day updated. But then I do the right dinner with the right people, and that's where my business comes from. I never got a call from Facebook or LinkedIn or anybody like that. So, you got to have it for that question, are you on LinkedIn, or where's your profile on Facebook? But the business comes from the relationships. Thank you. You guys all have social media presence? All right. Commercial real estate trends tends to be less personal and emotional when it comes to decision making processes, or of whether to buy or lease. What elements in the commercial real estate decision-making process could be transferred over to the personal decision-making processes in buying or selling a home?
I think one of the main objectives that can be transferred is trust. Your client obviously needs to know that they can trust you and that you're giving them the best possible advice. And when they ask questions and when they want your opinion, that you're giving the what you truly feel is in their best interest. And so for me, I always try to keep their interests closest at mind and not just give them the opinion that is going to yield the highest commission or what I think is best for them. It's what I truly know is best for that client, and that builds the trust and that keeps the relationship going with that client, because as everyone said on this panel, that's what this business is about, is relationships. And if you want to have that client for your career, that's what you need to do.
Yes. I think the perception very often, I was coming out of church the other day, and 3 friends of mine owning the industrial commercial real estate handed me their residential business cards. One was with the lead, and one was with Remax. And I got in the car and I saw 3 cards, and they all told me, I'm a residential real estate agent now. Oh, that's great. Good luck. I hope it works out for you. It's hard work. But I guess the point is that there was Me Too product. It was just I had the perception that all 3 of them told me they were doing the same thing. What sets them apart? What's the difference? And I think for all of us, there's a perception, and we as an industry have to ratchet up the perception of what we do. I call myself a corporate real estate consultant. Maybe you guys should call yourselves home investment consultants instead of a residential real estate agent. It's just, to me, it's not, don't get me wrong, it's not demeaning, it's just the fact that people will see is what value are you adding to my decision. So when somebody hands me a card that happens to be residential, I'm a home investment consultant. It's a business decision. We deal with business decision makers every day. The CEO is a macro type, big picture thinker. The president is the implementer of that plan. The senior VP of operations is in the trenches, putting the plan in place. The CFO is the numbers person. You're in a family, a husband and wife. They're the CEO and president of that organization. And they are not only thinking macro, they have to think micro, they have to think, you have to get them thinking along the business lines of a decision. Because it is a very emotional thing on the residential side. Residential is very emotional. That's probably why I didn't go in that direction. I didn't like the weekend open houses for one thing, but I felt that I wanted to be a part of a corporate decision-making process. And I like that part of it because there's rational decision-making that's going on, which you can do on the residential side. If you talk about the economics, the numbers, the reasons why, why does this home fit you, why doesn't it? You have to convert what we do on the corporate side into the residential side and get that mindset that I'm adding value to you, Mr. and Mrs. Home Buyer. And this is why. My thought.
So having never sold residential real estate, I'm not sure the process that you go through, although I've bought and sold some homes. And I think you all work no less diligently than any of us up here do. There's a perception in my mind, and maybe wrong, that in the commercial real estate side of it, there's more of a feeling of adaptability, an ability to look at a building and see what the uses are beyond walking in, this is what it looks like, can we use it like this, and we route it. For the residential agents that I've talked to run into a lot of emotional roadblocks on a building, on a house that would be perfectly usable for that group if they could just think past what the drapes look like, what the color is, what kind of appliances are in there, to go look for something that's closer to what they really want. I don't know how that fits in, but that's just a thought.
Perfect thought actually matches into Linda's opening statement is that the use. I always get kind of upset when I see this space sitting for a while and then suddenly Verizon comes in and I say, like, that was logical. But I didn't think of it while it was on. That thought didn't cross my mind. So being open to those things, I think, is a big thing. Now, one question that is not on the list that just I thought was a good one. You all work for large companies. Linda works for a small company, for herself. How much does printed collateral and business backup in big or small companies or single broker environments change the market competitiveness of agent in the commercial field? Does that make sense?
Yeah, sort of. If I knew that Linda was pitching the same listing that I'm pitching, I would be concerned. Just because it's a small company, you may not have the administrative backup, you may not have the great brochures, you may not have the network of offices. Bill and I worked for international companies, CBRE, Cushman & Wakefield, Brunels. Dennis has a group that works through SIOR, which is all over the country. But in talking to someone about getting a listing on their space, I have, because I know I'm competing against the national companies. I've never had, when I was with one of those companies, have anybody call from Boston that wanted 3,500 feet out of Fairbanks. It just doesn't happen. It's a local market. You're the marketing force for that particular area, not what your resume says your company can do someplace else. If you're going to represent Oracle or Xerox or somebody, that's a huge deal. So I think the smaller companies maybe have a more local connection with people in that particular market. You know, my market's basically San Gabriel Valley, just like Linda's, everybody else here is. But I think for a smaller company, I think it's easier to be more part of the community that you're working in than somebody that's with a large company trying to cover a large area.
I obviously like the Coldwell Banker Commercial brand, or I wouldn't work for Coldwell Banker Commercial. I think it's a good brand. It helps me get in the door, and it's highly identified. But if you walk into a meeting and you say, well, I'm with NAI Capital or DAUM or Coldwell Banker Commercial, we're the third largest commercial real estate company in the San Gabriel Valley, what does that do for the customer? What does that do for the customer? How does that lease or sell the building faster and for more money? And I think we're missing it if we say, well, I'm with Coldwell Banker Commercial, so you should hire me. Well, so what? You're with NAI or DAUM or TOP or Coldwell Banker. What are you going to do specifically to help me lease my building quicker and for more money? And secondly, we need to ask our customers, what are your goals and objectives for the building? Who's the decision makers? Oh, your two sisters are involved and they're in Arizona. Can I fly and meet your sisters? So it's nice to have a brand name, but it really comes down to what you as an individual are going to do for the customer. What tasks are you going to perform to be more accomplished and to lease or sell their building quicker and for more money?
And I echo that. I think it's about your service. Obviously, I'm with my own brokerage, and I chose that as opposed to being with a larger brokerage. But my focus is service for clients. And I do still think, to your question, that mail marketing is extremely important and getting your name out there. And so just as I'm sure everyone on the panel here gets their postcards and their letters out, I do the same. And that keeps you in front of the clients. They remember that. You know, I was at a listing presentation recently, and a client told me, I've been getting your letters for years. So it does make a difference, and people do recognize your name, but it's what your service to the clients will build your reputation, and that's what people will know. And I think that's what's most important when you're focusing on your business and your clients and really servicing those clients. And again, that goes hand in hand with the trust that I mentioned in the previous question.
You know, we're all trying to create our brand. It's the SANDOVAL Corporation, Bob Stover Corporation. Each one of us has, each of you should look at your business as your business, your corporate brand. Everything that comes out of that corporate office of yours, your desk and cube, should be professional, should be crisp, should be flawless. Have pride in what you distribute. Compare your marketing material to your competition. In my cubicle for years, I had 6 pictures of 6 agents in my office. And underneath that, I wrote in Sharpie at the time, what is my competition doing today that I'm not? And I'm a very competitive person. And I compete probably harder with myself than with anybody. But I always thought, what are those guys doing that I'm not? Is their marketing material better? Are they making more calls? Are they, what does their packages look like? How do I match up against them? If, say, we have 3 packages on a desk in front of a decision maker, how does mine compare? I'm always critiquing my marketing material. I always want mine to be the best. I want it to be looking the best. I want it to project the right message. And I want to be considered a top agent for the market I serve. And it's that thought, if you're coming to this conference today to try to glean something that you can take home with you, I think one of the biggest things you can take with you is, and it's hard, you have to critique yourself. What do I do wrong? What do I do right? And what do I need to improve on? And what are my, the things I need to hone that I do well? And it's a very, very sobering thing when you think about what you do each day and what you're sending out, the letters, the cards, the emails. What do they look like? What your name's on it. You have to have some pride with that piece of material that's going out. Take ownership with that. I do. Like the girls in my office know that if something goes out with a mistake, they know I'm going to catch it. And they know I'm not going to be happy. But there's too much at risk to not be attentive to the details. I'm telling you, that is one thing. The other thing is you've got to get out of this meeting today. Attention to details. Small things mean a lot. It's a messaging, it's an image, it's a perception. I'm a home investment consultant. I'm professional. I'm passionate about what I do. I want your business. Think about that.
Well, I give my materials to my wife and I hear it all. Have to change everything right away. All right. So the last question before we go into a short Q&A is, what do we see coming down the pipe in 2018? Can this panel provide any advice or food for thought in preparation for 2018?
Well, I think one of the things coming down the pipeline, which I know is a concern for many clients, is the tax reform. So that will be an interesting item that will play out in the next year to see how the death tax and those things play out, because that is an important factor for clients looking at their estate planning and looking at selling properties, 1031 exchanges, things of that nature. So I think that paying attention to that is going to be very important, and knowing how to obviously, we don't give tax advice, but knowing that helps you better service your clients and help prepare them what's best for their properties and what's best for their estate planning to work hand in hand with them.
Ditto, Linda. Tax reform, lowering the corporate and other taxes will certainly, hopefully, help fuel people to sell buildings. I think all of us are having a real struggle right now trying to find buildings to buy in this greater market. Our clients are going to Reno or Salt Lake City or Denver, where cap rates are much, much higher. But whatever the market is, we have to be the best at whatever it is we do, and things will work out well if we do that.
I think maybe just a caveat, excuse me, in that regard, is that to have a general knowledge of the market, of what's going on in tax reform, interest rate increases, those kinds of things. But from a liability standpoint, make sure that your client has reputable legal and accounting, financial advice from qualified individuals who can give them that advice, because you're not the expert in that field. You're the expert in the real estate market, not in giving tax advice to your clients and what they should do with their property.
I'm a believer that we have to be informed. We have to really understand where things are headed. We've seen a big change in the retail market, logistics, fulfillment centers, things that are driving up lease rates on the industrial side, things like that. I don't get bogged down with that, though. I don't get deterred with my day-to-day activity in the fact that I'm looking to get a listing, I'm looking to control a client. Those opportunities dictate the decision-making that takes place. I'm traveling in the corporate arena, and people are already, we're at ground zero of I always say we're ahead of the curve. By the time it gets to the newspaper, we've already been talking to decision makers in corporate offices across the country about what they're seeing and what they're planning to do. The changing market, the changing logistics plans, the changing demographics of certain areas. So my goal is to find the urgency in the market. Somebody that needs to make a decision. Somebody needs to sell, somebody needs to buy, somebody needs to lease. Why and what's driving that decision? So it gets back to my blue-collar approach to the business. If I'm in the middle of relationship building discussions and having quite frank discussions with decision makers, they're telling me, Dennis, I'm concerned with the capital gains. I'm concerned with logistics planning. I'm concerned with where my business is going. You know, you got the Walmarts, the Amazons, they're pushing me out of business. You know, those are real life urgent questions that we get in the middle of. That dictates where we're going. That dictates how we create an opportunity for ourselves, and that dictates what value we add to that decision-making process. So we've got to be knowledgeable in general about a lot of different things. And I think that's important. But when it comes down to the nuts and bolts of our business, you have a decision maker sitting across the desk from you, and he's asking for advice, he's asking for input. If we're not giving valuable input and giving them information to make a well-informed decision, we're not doing our job. I've never came into this business to be just a yes man to my clients. I want them to look at me as somebody who's going to be honest and frank with them and tell them, you know, maybe you shouldn't buy that building. Maybe it's not a good time to go take on that 50,000 square foot lease. Get an industrial space planner in here to revisit the space that you have. It's underutilized. It costs me a deal, but I've got a client that knows that I put him first instead of me. So don't lose sight of we're in a service business. All we have is our good name and reputation and the value we add to the discussion. So you take that to your residential side of the world, and I guarantee you that's going to go a long ways with people looking at you as a credible resource, somebody, like Linda says, can trust, somebody they're going to have confidence in. My thought.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you all for that. Before we complete, I'll take a few questions. We got only 5 minutes, so the best questions, let's start on that end.
That's the question. I'm a new agent, so I have a question regarding your collateral. How much do you put out there, and is there a balance between putting out too much so that your competition has all the same information as you?
I'm going to repeat the question, Nick. So she's a new agent. She wants to know what kind of collateral we put out, what kind of documents. I mean, mine are all over the table, so I was willing to do it, but I just want to repeat the question for our panel and the audience.
I'll tell you, in my little packet there, probably the two most important things that you're going to have is pipeline and being able to manage your time, prioritize your time. I wouldn't get so bogged down with the collateral and all that. I'm a very fundamental guy. I like to keep things simple, and I still do most of the same things I did 30 years ago. Sunday night, before I go to bed, I list the top 6 things I got to do that next day. I have 15 calls, my priority calls I got to make that next day. And I know I've got an area that I've plotted that I'm going to go visit. If you did that every day, had a plan, come Sunday night, and you have your week laid out for you, you can go back Friday, look over your shoulder, and say, you know what, I had a pretty damn productive week. I met my goals for calls. I met my goals for prospecting. I sent out my 5 letters a day. I sent out my 20 emails a day. You've got to create a system that's going to keep you accountable The good thing about our business is the freedom. The bad thing about our business is the freedom. Think about it. We are so good at procrastinating. And I try to eliminate procrastination from my routine. I'm telling you, I've been doing this too many years, and I know what my income goals are every year. If I procrastinate, I'm not going to hit. My time is worth $500 to $600 an hour. If I'm not doing $500 to $600 an hour work, I'm wasting my time. You need to figure out what your time is worth. And you better be doing things and working on things that are about $100 an hour to start with. Whatever it is, that's your ramp-up period. At some point, your time is worth money. And there's a return on investment.
Well, speaking of, to answer the question about collateral material, I think we should all, whether it's our first day in the business or 30 years, have a document where if somebody leaves us a voicemail during this conference and says, I want to sell my house or my building, you have something you can email them about yourself. So I believe we should all have an effective collateral piece. I have mine in front of you, others do too. But I think it's important. And if you just started out in the business, you can still talk about yourself and your office and perhaps the listings your team has.
Great. I'll take one in the back, and I think that's all the time we got. Yes, go ahead.
Mark Hischer with MMAG Commercial. A question for you guys about education. How many hours a week do you spend educating yourself, maybe separately on the market, versus educating yourself on skills and ability to do your job?
You know, we all get newsletters, we all get market reports. Even if you scan those, it just takes forever. So I set aside a certain amount of time in the evening. I don't read them during the day because that takes up too much time from talking to people and trying to do deals. But I'll print out articles, print them out, take them home, read through them so at least I'm aware of what's going on. The education part of it, AIR has various seminars on their documents. They're not that complex once you really get into them, but you need to know what's in those documents rather than just a form that you hand somebody. As far as, well, that's it.
We should all be listening to the news when we drove here today. If we're an expert in selling houses in Arcadia, we should read the Arcadia local paper, know what the Arcadia Chamber of Commerce is doing, and know what properties were sold today and are coming in the market today. We should all know our local market better than anybody else.
I echo that. I think it's very important to know everything available on the market, so I take time to constantly look at the availability, look at the inventory, review that, look at where the prices are going, read the market reports. What I do many times is print them out and, waiting for an appointment, waiting for what have you, waiting for a client in their lobby. I read. I read the news, know what's going on, read about the tax reforms coming down the line. So keeping informed is extremely important, and taking that time is very important. Also, as you said, AIR is a good avenue, their contract seminar. Also, as far as our business goes, knowing what's happening with the cities, going to the city updates when they're available, reading the various city reports, what's happening in those cities, what developments are occurring, is very important to keep in mind, so that when you meet with a client, you're knowledgeable and you can tell them what's happening in the market, what development's going on, and that goes a long way.
Yeah, another thing if I can mention, sorry, I know you're going to jump in. I knew you always have something to say. So. It takes some time, but the areas that you're working, the cities that you're working in, I get notifications from probably six cities, I think, that I kind of focus on from the government agencies to find out when planning commission meetings are, when city council meetings are. The day before those happen, there's usually an agenda attached. You've got to briefly go through those. Okay, for something here that I need to see, it's out. Oh, I didn't know this building was being reviewed by the planning commission. I didn't know that was going on. So let me go to that planning commission meeting. It takes a couple hours on an evening. You sit, you listen to the discussion, you see what's going on, you meet the people who are doing the development. It might be a client that you're going to have because they don't have a marketing agent, but they're going to build a building, they want an approval for it. So knowing what's going on from a permitted perspective like that, I think has been real helpful to me.
That's excellent.
I think in the course of going back to the education process, it's ongoing. I mean, I think it's just in the natural course of our day-to-day discussions. questions surface. And whether it be zoning, whether it be use, whether it be fire code, whether it be fire sprinkler issues, whatever, those things occur. So there's a lot of things we don't know. So right away, we go and try to research and get our answers. If we're doing our job and we're talking to enough people every day, there's going to be a laundry list of questions that should surface during your interrogation and discussion with your prospects. I mean, maybe more so on our side, but there's got to be a layer of issues on the residential side that surface. And maybe they're more financing related. Maybe they're more room addition and construction issues and fire code issues related. Whatever they are, we've got to be students and quick studies on those items. And we've got, like Bob said earlier, we've got to be careful that we don't put ourselves in a position of playing attorney or general contractor or CPA, but we can give input and advice. But I think the educational side, we've just got to be sponges for all aspects of our business. And because that's what we are. We're in a service business. We need to be the point of contact. For anybody who has a question real estate related, you want to be the person they call. You know, oh gosh, I got a question on the zoning. I'm going to call Bob. Oh, I got a question on that darn use permit. I'm going to call Bill. You want to be that person. He'll either have an answer or he's going to direct me to somebody. I'm a big believer that you have to have a network of support people behind you. I meet every quarter with my support team. I have an industrial engineer. I have a general contractor, a paving contractor, HVAC guy, and a fire sprinkler guy. We get together for a quick lunch. We talk about things that are going on in the business. Every quarter we have a quick lunch, we have a beer, and we talk shop. And we go on. But I can honestly then tell my clients I'm part of a network of people that are going to support every aspect of your need. And if you want to set up a meeting, I can set up a meeting with all 6 of us. But you need to add value, and you need to be educated, and you need to be proactive, and you got to ask for the business. I'm a simple sales guy with some simple fundamentals, and they don't change. I'm very competitive, I'm very proactive, and I want people to know I want their business, and it's important to them. Add value.
Well, just to kind of piggyback on that, I think Dennis continues this theme, which I think is really important, is that you ask for the business. You tell them you want to provide a service to them. You want their business. You want to be with them. There was a guy, when we first started out in business, it was Zig Ziglar, who used to do motivational tapes, you know him. And he said, well, if you continue to visit these people in their offices, but you don't ask for the business, are you just a professional visitor? I'm here because you have this need, or there's something going on in your company that I found out about. How can I be of service in helping you accomplish that? I would like to work with you on this. What can I do for you?
We're all guilty of this charge for that and not asking for getting fast for business. Did you want to say something there?
Well, I just think we're wrapping it up, and there was a question that you had posed earlier. What's the difference with the top 5% and the other 95% in business? And I think that's one of the things, is not being shy about asking for the business. But the other thing is, how prepared are you, going back to my point, each week? I guarantee you, Sunday night, there's only a handful of your competitors sitting there plotting their course for the week. I guarantee you. No, come Monday, 95% of them are sitting at Starbucks having a coffee, thinking about what they're going to do that next hour. They don't even know where they're headed on Tuesday, let alone where they're going to be in the next hour. Again, today, we've been fortunate to be fairly successful doing what we do. But I think there's a little passion between the 4 of us. We're passionate about what we do. You have to have a little passion to go out and start your own company. You have to be a risk taker. You have to be confident in yourself to do that. You have to have a little gray around the ears to be doing the business as long as we've been doing this business and still be at it, still loving what we do. But you have to be honest with yourselves. And you're sitting here, and I commend you for being here today. There's how many hundreds of other people are out doing whatever they're doing, but you're here. If you could take 1 or 2 items out of this meeting today and implement them tomorrow or this afternoon, you're ahead of the rest of the pack. You're somebody I need to be working with me, because I want doers. I want people proactive. I want people that are going to go out and do the hard things first.
And we're out of time, so I thank you for being a great panel, and I hope that you have learned something today.